Now, am I wrong? Am I crazy? That just seems like there's no, we're not playing nice anymore.
No, they're not playing nice. And it's a lie when President Biden gets up there and says he's president for all Americans, just like it's a lie when Governor Tim Walz says he wants one Minnesota. They very clearly live off division, and I can tell you exactly why. It's not just because they're terrible people. It's because it's politically necessary. They have created a new political uh, mechanism in this state through their all of their alterations to how elections work.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be that we had election day, right? You showed up
Yeah.
to the polls, you cast your vote, and in that context, issues mattered.
Mm-hmm.
What your constituents thought actually mattered, and you'll recall we weren't as divided then because people in these swing districts actually had to respond to the sentiments, the prevailing sentiments in their communities. Now, with this like 45-day election season that we have, elections are no longer about issues. They're no longer about sentiment. They're no longer about what people want. They're no longer about your community's values. They are entirely about political machinery, campaign machinery, boots on the ground, ballot harvesting, getting ballots in boxes. And you'll notice from the way that they go about doing it, they don't go to people and ask them what they think about X, Y, and Z. They go up to them and say, "Give me your ballot," right? And so the new political currency is not political capital in the sense that we've typically thought about it. It is motivating your foot soldiers to go out there and get the ballots in the boxes. Now, who are your foot soldiers? Your foot soldiers are the crazies. They're the people who want to kill all the babies.
Yeah.
They're the people who support like Lee Finke and Byron Curran, who put in a bill recently that would have the effect, I kid you not, of taking away your ability to defend yourself against a trans person who's actively engaged in sexual assault. That bill was introduced by them recently. Okay.
Uh,
And those are the types of things that animate their side. Their side gets all excited about
well,
sticking it to normies.
yeah.
And so they'll go out there and they'll get those ballots and they'll put them in boxes and it'll get Democrats elected. And that, at the end of the day, is the only thing that Democrats care about.
That really hits because when my wife and I watched the State of the Union last week, and it was so divisive. You got the State of the Union. I have no problem coming out and say, here's this in the United States, how we make it better. Here's this and how we make it. But it wasn't that. It was an hour long, get my left flank excited
Yes,
conversation.
you
Same
got it.
as the Republicans with their response, which had nothing to do with the speech, is something written hours or days ahead of time. And she practiced. Okay. So I'm like thinking to myself, remember, Mr. Hudson, you remember this? Back in the day, both sides had 40%. It was that middle 20 that made the election. And everybody went out there, and I give Ronald Reagan his speech of the great city on the hill, and with this rah rah, tried to get that 20 to say, oh, I believe this cat, this organ. No one's going for that 20 anymore, and I think you might be onto something. If I can get my 40 crazed up about what's going on, they'll get out. And if I get them more crazed than the other guys, 40%, and who cares where the middle falls? We've lost it. I think you're absolutely onto something if you're not on something, because this is nuts that no one talks to the rest of us in the middle that say, okay, I'm not going to go to task on a flag, but I
Yeah.
will. You know what I'm saying? They don't care about the middle anymore.
Well, I would argue that it's still 20%. It's just that the window of where that 20% is taken from has shifted from the center over to the edges, right?
All
So
right.
they're still focused on a mere 20% of the population, but it's the craziest 20% of the population. This is why, by the way, Republicans, in spite of the fact that looking at historical trends, like the whole red wave that was predicted in 2022, that should have happened, and it would have happened under the old electoral regime. They have changed the way elections
Work.
work now so that it's no longer about sentiment and trends and economic
Mm.
factors. Like people are genuinely infuriated by the state of the economy and by this criminal first, victim last approach to public safety, the immigration, open borders. We're looking at a sanctuary state, all these issues. Like that 40%, okay? in both parties are against that stuff, as well as the 20% in the middle. But you've got these people on the fringe who demand that that's the way we're going to go. And they're the ones who control the electoral mechanisms and machinery. And so that's the direction the Democrats are going to take us.